Welcome to this wonderful event in this beautiful building. I'm Ralph Ruban, the Baxley Professor and Director of the Department of Pathology and the Director of the Saul Goldman Pancreatic Cancer Research Center at Johns Hopkins. I warmly welcome you to the dedication of the John R. Lewis Professorship and the installation of Clayton Yates as the inaugural recipient. It's such a really wonderful occasion. Thank you for those of you who are joining us virtually. It's really exciting that we're gathered in this new building because it overlooks the Congress. And of course, that's where John Lewis did so much for the American people and for this country. I'm delighted that joining us this evening from our institution and participating in this ceremony are Tony Anderson, the Vice Chair of the Board of Trustees of the University, and Landon King, the Executive Vice Dean for Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine. I'm overjoyed that we have two special speakers this evening, Reverend Raphael Warnock, the U.S. Senator from Georgia, and Michael Collins, who served as Chief of Staff for Congressman Lewis for many, many years. Thank you both for joining us. We're deeply grateful to have John Miles Lewis joining us later this evening, representing his father, and it's really an honor to have him here. I wish to express my sincere appreciation to Linda Early-Chastain, and Michael Collins and Peter Harvey for helping put the many pieces together to make this evening possible. Thank you. I also want to extend a warm welcome to Clayton Yates, the inaugural recipient, his really wonderful wife, Adrian, and their children, Nicholas and Siani. Welcome, and also your extended family. Clayton, I cannot think of a faculty member more deserving of this special honor than you. Your life's work, your research, so embodies the goals of this professorship, I'll talk about that later, that you really are the perfect recipient in so many ways for this. So we look forward to the installation. The John Lewis Professorship is really historic for Johns Hopkins University. It's the first endowed professorship in the School of Medicine dedicated to diversity, equity, and inclusion in science. I'm deeply grateful to the anonymous donors who made this possible. I admire their commitment to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion, to help fight human suffering, and to honor a truly great American. Thank you. The importance of an endowed professorship cannot be overestimated. One, it's a wonderful way to recruit extraordinary people to join the team, and Clayton, you're a great example of it. Once they've joined the team, the endowed professorship, the income from it, gives the holder of it the intellectual and academic freedom to pursue long-shot, impactful science. They don't have to worry about day-to-day getting smaller and smaller grants. And perhaps most importantly, these exist in perpetuity. So as long as there's a Johns Hopkins University, there'll be a John R. Lewis Professorship. So it really accomplishes so much. Because the endowment is held and administered by the university trustees, professorships are formally presented to the university. At this time, I'd like to invite Landon King, Executive Vice Dean of Johns Hopkins School of Medicine, to the podium to introduce and present the John R. Lewis Professorship in Pathology to Tony Anderson.
Good afternoon, and thank you very much, Dr. Ruban. It's an incredible privilege to be here to celebrate this momentous occasion. Dr. Ted DeWeese, who is our interim dean and the CEO of Johns Hopkins Medicine, offers his apologies that he was not able to be here today. This is a great disappointment for him that he was not able to join this particular occasion, but ask that I extend a welcome for all of you for being here today, and in particular offer his congratulations to Dr. Yates. You know, the installation of a new professor is always a special occasion in the life of a university and in the School of Medicine. This feels particularly special as we gather to celebrate this particular professorship. Exciting, inspiring, extremely humbling. Thank you, Senator Warnock, for taking the time to be with us today and for your service and leadership, certainly in the Senate, but far beyond. We are all deeply appreciative. I'd also like to thank Mr. Collins for his service in Congressman Lewis's office for many, many years. We greatly appreciate that you're here today. And Mr. Anderson, thank you for being here on behalf of the Johns Hopkins University. It's a privilege to be here with all of you. Congressman John Lewis was the voice of the people. His lifelong dedication to the fight for racial equality, civil rights, and the needs of those who, as he put it, have been left out and left behind, created an indelible mark on our society. We are all honored to have the opportunity to remember and to celebrate the extraordinary legacy and impact of Congressman Lewis, and to have his name connected to Johns Hopkins in a manner that will live in perpetuity. In Johns Hopkins Medicine, we are dedicated to providing the best possible care to our patients, all of those that we have the privilege of caring for, regardless of their background or circumstances, all day, every day. But we also consider it not just an opportunity, but a responsibility to discover, to innovate, to educate, to train, so that the work that we do will have an impact, not just on the patients that are in front of us, but for people who we will never meet and never see. That's our commitment as part of our tripartite mission of clinical care, education, and research. Our goal is to create a healthier, more vibrant, and more equitable society here in the Mid-Atlantic, across the United States, across the globe. Establishing professorships like this one is critical to our efforts to advance discovery and improve health for all groups. I'm thrilled that we have been able to recruit Dr. Yates to become a member of our Johns Hopkins family and to serve as the inaugural John R. Lewis Professor in Pathology. My heartiest congratulations to you, Dr. Yates, on this significant milestone. You are indeed a shining example of the type of faculty and type of person that an endowed professorship at Johns Hopkins is meant to support. Thank you for your leadership, for the impressive body of work that you have already created and will no doubt extend, and for the mentorship that you have provided and will continue to provide to trainees from a broad range of backgrounds. We are delighted that you are the inaugural John R. Lewis Professor in Pathology. It is a privilege to be here today to recognize what you have done and together to be able to imagine what you will do going forward. The John R. Lewis Professorship honors the legacy of a great leader, and it is fitting that Congressman Lewis's lifelong achievements will always be aligned with the accomplishments of faculty like Dr. Yates and the women and men who will succeed him in this significant professorship for generations to come in the Department of Pathology at Johns Hopkins. At this time, I would like to invite Anthony Anderson, Vice Chair of the Johns Hopkins University Board of Trustees, to join me at the podium. As Ralph noted, because the endowment for a professorship is held and administered by the university, the professorships are formally presented to the university. So it is my great privilege as Executive Vice Dean of the Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine to present to you as trustee of the university the John R. Lewis Professorship in Pathology in the Department of Pathology. Congratulations. Oh, excuse me.
On behalf of Johns Hopkins University, it gives me great pleasure to accept the John R. Lewis Professorship in Pathology in the Department of Pathology. I'm here today in place of my friend and fellow trustee, Howard Woolley, who unfortunately is sick. Howard knew Congressman Lewis, and in fact, he shared this photo with me, so I'm going to show you, of the two of them together. He would have loved to have been here himself to accept this professorship. It is an honor for me as well. I am pleased to be here with Dr. King, Dr. Rubin, Senator Warnock, and Mr. Collins. President Daniels has asked me as well to extend his congratulations to you, Dr. Yates. He couldn't be more thrilled. Johns Hopkins is honored to have an endowment that perpetuates the legacy of Congressman John R. Lewis. Endowments carry on a tradition that began nearly 500 years ago with the endowment of the Lady Margaret Chairs in Divinity at Oxford and Cambridge. These chairs were created by Margaret, the Countess of Richmond and the mother of Henry VII. And in 1546, Henry VIII established the Regius professorships at both universities in five subjects: divinity, civil law, Greek, Hebrew, and physics, what we currently know as medicine and basic sciences. Later, private individuals joined in providing chairs, such as the Lucian Chair in mathematics, which was held by Isaac Newton beginning in 1669. I know you all remember that. The honor associated with appointment to an endowed chair has remained unchanged. The men and women who hold endowed professorships at Johns Hopkins conduct some of our most significant research. They attract the very best trainees who come here to work with scientists who are acknowledged leaders in their fields. Their work makes this a great university, and their ability to chart new courses of research and patient care comes in no small part from the reliable support of an endowed chair. Dr. Yates, your work in health disparities cancer research has had an impact across the United States and across the world. And you are most deserving of this named professorship. So please accept our heartiest congratulations on this great achievement, and we look forward to celebrating the extraordinary results of your work in the future.
It's my pleasure to welcome Senator Raphael Warnock to say a few words. Senator.
Thank you so very much. I take note that Dr. Rubin didn't say he's coming to say a few words until he got to the Baptist preacher. But thank you, kind sir, for your invitation. It's great to be here. Thanks to Dr. King, Dr. Woolley, and Michael Collins, my brother, who has been so much a part of the tapestry of Congressman Lewis's life for such a long time. Thank you for this honor. And I want especially to congratulate our inaugural professor. Let's hear it for Dr. Clayton Yates. It's always an honor to speak in memory of my friend and parishioner, Congressman John Lewis. Every time I say his name, I have to pause because I'm tempted to say the Reverend Congressman John Lewis. But what a remarkable life. The truth is, as a young man, he actually did preach a trial sermon, as we do in our tradition, with the expectation that he might become a pastor, that he would live his life in ministry. But as I said at his service that I officiated, instead of preaching sermons, he became a sermon. He embodied the ethic of love and justice, resonant not only in our Christian tradition, but in all of the great religious traditions, and in people who claim no particular religious tradition, but seek to act in the world as agents of moral courage. I'm delighted to be here to pay tribute to John Lewis, who was a hero in every sense of the word. He was a giant in the face of adversity and injustice. I think it's appropriate that a professorship focused on research for the sake of healing the body would be named in honor of John Lewis. Because here is a man who we all celebrate because he laid his body on the line in order to heal the body politic, because he understood the relationship between one and the other. How appropriate that we would be in this room overlooking the Capitol that could use all the help that it can get right now. Reflecting on the legacy of a servant, a true public servant, who, unlike so many in elected office these days, centered the people rather than the politics. I think if we center the people rather than the politics, we have a chance at getting the public policy right. He was not so focused on the next election that he couldn't think about the next generation. After all, he did not set out to be an elected official. He was a servant. And so we celebrate him today. I was honored to be his pastor. In fact, I eulogized his wife, Lillian. And in the midst of my first of 5 elections in 3 years, I had the honor of officiating his service. I was his pastor, but he was the mentor. What a living contemporary embodiment of something as close to a saint as we ever see. And by saying, I don't mean a perfect person. There's no such thing. But a man who lent his gifts and his challenges and his weakness for the sake of the greater good. When we're up against big challenges in our country, and we are inclined to give in to despair and cynicism, on the days when I, like all of us, wring my hands and think, well, what's next? How are we going to get through what happened just this past weekend? I think, Michael, about John Lewis crossing that Edmund Pettus Bridge. And I think as we look in the rearview mirror, we have the temptation of looking at these victories won by the civil rights movement as if they were inevitable. They were not. In fact, they were quite improbable. John Lewis had no reason to think that he could win. Crossing that Edmund Pettus Bridge with brute force on the other side. And as I officiated his service back in 2020, I asked myself the night before the service, what was John Lewis thinking when he was crossing that bridge? Was he thinking that one day he would be the recipient of a Presidential Medal of Freedom? No, he didn't care about that. Was he thinking that at the end of his life, 3 American presidents on both sides of the aisle would attend his funeral, bringing us together in death the same way he did in life? No, I don't think that young man could have imagined that. I think he was just trying to stay alive that day so he could fight for the next day. And yet, by some stroke of grace, mingled with human resilience, he crossed that bridge and built the bridge at the same time. He pulled the moral arc of the universe that bends toward justice a little bit closer to that justice. And so how appropriate that we would have this endowed professorship focused on healing the body, which I believe is the Lord's work, in honor of a man who laid his body on the line to heal the body politic. That work continues. And I'm honored to be with his family and others as we celebrate him. Because of his work, because of his sacrifice, I stand as the first African-American senator from the state of Georgia, only the 11th black senator in the whole history of our country. I'm clear I stand on his shoulders. And when I got elected on January 5th, 2021, I was feeling pretty good. It had been a long, hard-fought election, won in a runoff. The next morning, I was proud of what we achieved in Georgia. Thanks, by the way, to all of you who sent money, answered my many emails and text messages. I was feeling good. The next morning, I won, and I woke up feeling good the day after the election. I was a toast of the town on all of the morning shows, Good Morning America, CBS This Morning. I knew I had arrived because I was on The View talking to Whoopi Goldberg. It was a wonderful morning. It was the morning of January 6th. And by that afternoon, the other side of our complicated American story emerged. The ugly side. And we saw the most violent attack on the Capitol since the War of 1812. People trying to take the voices of the people that John Lewis had stood up for. Behind the big lie that the election was stolen was another lie that this diverse American electorate emerging does not get to decide the direction of the country. That's what was at stake. And then after January 6th, we saw that assault, if you will, metastasize into voter suppression bills all across the country. And we are in a battle right now to heal the soul of our country, to bring healing to the body politic, which is why we have to pass the Freedom to Vote Act, which John Lewis wrote. And we have to pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. And so thank you so very much for coming together in this way. Thank you, Johns Hopkins, for the incredible work you do. You are a destination for some of the best of the best. And as America's first research university, we know your institution has revolutionized higher education in the United States and continues to expand the horizons of what is possible. And by doing this, by accepting this anonymous gift and inaugurating this professorship, you move one step closer in your commitment to a diverse health field, which recognizes that the disparities that we see in healthcare are also connected to representation. So I know that my friend John Lewis would be honored to see his legacy colliding with yours, how this professorship will help your staff and your students and all of us to see that we're tied in a single garment of destiny, and that it will propel all of us to address racial inequalities in healthcare and health outcomes. Dr. King said it best, of all the injustices, inequality in healthcare is the most shocking and the most inhumane. And so let's celebrate John Lewis tonight, and then let's go forward and do the important work. The work of building a more perfect union, because he believed in America, and I believe in America. In no other country is my story possible, a kid who grew up in public housing, now serving in the United States Senate. He believed in America, but we have to fight for the best in the American spirit. And so I look forward to working alongside research institutions like Johns Hopkins to continue getting the federal support that you need to move health care forward, to address the social determinants of health care. What happens in the body politic impacts the body, to invest in research, to help ourselves and our neighbors live happier, healthier lives. And I will work to ensure that in the same way our healthcare professionals treat infirm bodies, we will keep pushing to heal and mend our democracy. And together, we will build what Dr. King called the beloved community. I know the days are difficult, the times are dark, but Scripture tells us that the light shines in the darkness. It's not that it's not dark, but the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness overcometh it not. May John Lewis's inspiring example cause all of us to rise up and be a part of the light. Keep the faith.
Thank you for those words. It gives me pleasure to introduce Michael Collins, who was Chief of Staff for Congressman Lewis from 1999 to 2020. Mr. Collins.
Thank you so very much. Let me first say, I'm not sure who put the program together, but this isn't fair, that I have to come after Reverend Warnock. Just want you to know that. Reverend Warnock, your leadership. This is moving. This is just very moving. It's, as the Congressman would say, it's too much because there's so many forces that come together at this particular moment. Congressman Lewis would be so proud of your leadership, Reverend Warnock. You meant so much to him. He didn't get a chance to witness this opportunity for you serving, but you witnessed so much of his life, and Mrs. Lewis and the Congressman trusted you. And that's something people would not know, and how much he really meant to you. So thank you again. Thank you so much, Johns Hopkins School of Medicine, for including me in this special occasion. It is an honor for me to be here with you and these esteemed guests. First, let me acknowledge John Miles Lewis, the Congressman's son, and his partner, Latasha Brooks. Being here in this space is particularly meaningful. We all know that this was a beautiful building, was preciously the museum. The Congressman loved this building. He absolutely loved the view. He would come here as often as he could and go to the rooftop in which he could see the Capitol. He just enjoyed every opportunity to come when he was invited. I'm reminded of how important the news had been to his life and the world. When he was young, his teachers told him to read. Read, my child, read. And he read everything. Newspapers were stacked in the office and at home, miles high. And John Miles could attest to that. He loved coming back to the museum because it was the opportunity to revisit the history that he had made in the world at large. After the museum was closed, the enormous marble panels displaying the First Amendment had been part of the museum entryway were gifted to the National Constitution Center in Philadelphia. In 2016, Congressman Lewis won the Liberty Medal for that very same National Constitution Center. I had the privilege of serving as Congressman Lewis's Chief of Staff for 21 years. As his Chief of Staff, I had the responsibility to ensure that the Congressman didn't overextend himself. I failed. Because at every juncture, he wanted to do more. And Brenda Jones, our communications director, would attest to that today, along with the staff. I told Congressman one day, "You've got to slow down." He said, "Michael, I only want to be used for good. Please, let me be used for good." And so that was our life with the Congressman. and we as staff and family honored every decision he made to keep him moving. One of the other things the Congressman said, and used to say a lot, was healthcare is a right, not a privilege. Access to healthcare cannot be determined by the digits of their zip code or the size of their wallet. He would say that all the time. He talked about, from his perspective, how healthcare in his own community of the South was challenging, and he bear witness to it. It endured a lot of lack of access to quality healthcare. He fought hard on the issues of health equity, in particularly sponsoring legislation that would elevate the then NIH Office of Research on Minority Health to the National Center on Minority Health and Health Disparities, a name that he intentionally chose. The legislation would hold the nation's research capacity to address pervasive health disparities and help enhance the recruitment and retention of underrepresented people of color in the scientific workforce. This was big for the Congressman. The Congressman would be deeply moved and honored that the Johns Hopkins University Medical School would think so highly of his legacy to create this professorship. He valued the medical profession. He valued doctors, including the doctors who treated him. When John Lewis was beaten over the head on Bloody Sunday, he was taken to Good Samaritan Hospital, where he was triaged by wonderful and caring nuns. He was later transferred to Massachusetts General Hospital in Boston, Massachusetts, in hopes that he would receive the best medical care. Dr. Geiger led the care team for Congressman Lewis, and he survived and recovered. Several years later, he had the opportunity to reunite with Dr. Geiger and thank him for taking such great care of him, and the rest is history. So I offer warm congratulations to Dr. Yates on your installment as the inaugural John R. Lewis Professor of Pathology, and I wish you a similar clarity of purpose and values as the man for whom your professorship is named. Congratulations.
It gives me great pleasure to speak about a man I so admire and who is really, as I mentioned earlier, really embodies the intent of the professorship. I want to share a few words about Clayton's life story. So he's born in Tuskegee, Alabama, moves to Atlanta, Georgia, something close to the senator's heart and to John Lewis's. And then he goes back to Tuskegee for undergraduate education. He's the 13th member of his family to go to Tuskegee. The first one in 1907, I think, was invited by Booker T. Washington himself to go to Tuskegee. And so there, of course, Clayton excelled and then went on for Ph.D. and fellowship training at Pittsburgh at Emory. And Clayton shared two observations with me in his advanced training. One, that there was no one who looked like him. There were very few other African-American researchers, students in these labs. He was the only one. And so he set about to do something about that. The second thing that he shared with me is healthcare disparities and cancer outcome in particular. So African-American men are twice as likely to die of prostate cancer as are white men. And this wasn't just a statistic for Clayton. For his grandfather died of prostate cancer when Clayton was only 14, and they were very close. So from his training, he then wanted to fight cancer and fight healthcare disparities. So improving the workforce, the diversity of the workforce, and fighting disparities. At that time, he went to his mentors and said, this is what I'd like to do. And they said, well, there's not a career in healthcare disparities. You'll never get a grant. So Clayton returned to Tuskegee, and boy, did he ever succeed. in terms of he was succeeded at a time where others doubted him. In terms of disparities, and they're in the program, but I have to read the numbers because he trained 15 Ph.D. students underrepresented in medicine, 28 master's students underrepresented in medicine, 5 postdocs underrepresented in medicine, and he mentored 10 junior faculty. If that wasn't enough, the American Association of Cancer Research recognized his unique talents and appointed him the chair of the Minorities in Cancer Research Council. So what he did at Tuskegee, he brought broader to the United States and helped diversify the workforce. There's still a long way to go, but Clayton, we look forward to great things at Hopkins, expanding the diversity of the workforce. Again, despite starting his career at a time where no one believed in healthcare disparities research, Clayton wanted to address, there clearly are social determinants, but are there biological determinants? And so he did really beautiful research in which he would take a surgically resected prostate cancer from a gentleman of African ancestry and compare the fundamental cell pathways that are activated to prostate cancers resected from white patients. And Clayton identified pathways that are uniquely activated in individuals of African heritage, and these may explain why they're so aggressive. It's important because now there are markers that can be followed of these pathways and hopefully therapeutic targets as well. Really impactful science, and Clayton, we look forward to more impactful science at Hopkins. To summarize, I think, like John Lewis, Clayton believed in something important. Like John Lewis, Clayton faced challenges, but persisted and continued. And like John Lewis, Clayton succeeded and helped his fellow man. So congratulations, Clayton, on all your hard work. It's just simply amazing. Clayton isn't just a scientist, he's also a wonderful human being. Sadly, his first wife passed away, and Clayton raised his beautiful daughter, Siani, as a single parent. He then met beautiful Adrian, and they married 5 years ago, and now they're raising both Siani and Nicholas together. He's an extraordinary human being. I hope you have time to chat with him this evening and realize what a genuine, good soul he is. I promised I'd be brief, but Clayton, from the bottom of my heart, congratulations. At this time, I'd like to invite Clayton to the podium and Landon King.
Thank you very much again, Dr. Ruben. Dr. Yates, today we recognize your leadership and international reputation in health disparities cancer research, cell biology, and molecular pathology, and your stellar mentorship of the next generation of scientists. Endowed professorships are the highest honor Johns Hopkins Medicine can bestow upon a member of our faculty and are vital to our ongoing mission of teaching, research, and patient care. Endowments matter because they enable us to hire and retain the very best. Our faculty are the reason for our preeminence and the key to any success we aspire to. So on behalf of the School of Medicine, I'm pleased to present this medallion to you as a symbol of this honor and in celebration of your installation as the inaugural recipient of the John R. Lewis Professorship in Pathology. Congratulations, Clayton.
Okay, I'll need to hold it together. So what an honor. Senator Warnock, Mr. Collins, everyone for coming out and supporting what I think is a culmination of celebration of John Lewis, but also a culmination of all of us in this room. I want to first thank God. I couldn't be here without, believing in a higher power to be able to, force through some of those challenging times. We didn't have reagents. We didn't have, all of the equipment that we needed to address disparities, but we knew it was important and we wanted to keep pushing forward. I want to thank my wife. This life of professorship, you have to write a lot of grants. Okay, it takes a lot of time. So she has to endure me being in a room closed off, writing these grants, coming up with the ideas, ensuring that we are trying to push the boundaries of medicine and push what we think and know about disparities and how that would affect all of us, not just African Americans, but all of us. And so, again, I want to thank you for putting up with me and the support, because she makes everything right at home so I can do this work. Nick and Siani, the same with you guys. Thank you for being here. Again, being in a household of a scientist, and many of you know, you can't go anywhere without stopping in the lab first. We got to stop by the lab. We got to do some experiments, and then we can go to the park. We got to stop by the lab first. We do a few experiments, and then we can go to the museum. And so, again, having to grow up with that, I want to appreciate your support, and also, they're grown now. They have their own lives, and so being here is really meaningful to me. I also want to thank my family. So see, all of that right there, that's the Yates family. We have people who come from Tuskegee. I have local family here in D.C., my sister, my cousins. I mean, it's just, it's great to be here and support, to be around family in Alabama, but also to move to Johns Hopkins to be close to family as well. And it's definitely really an honor. As I was thinking of this position, and obviously going through the interview process and contemplating accepting and being awarded the John Lewis Professorship of Pathology, I thought about who John Lewis was, and then tried to think about, was I worthy of that, right? And so I think one of the monikers that really stood out for me was, he liked to call it getting in good trouble, right? Now, if any one of those family over here, and we could talk about this afternoon, I got in a lot of okay trouble when I was younger. Not necessarily good trouble, maybe not bad trouble. But it was my family, particularly my grandmother, who got a master's degree in 1955 from Harry University and then Indiana University, who forced us and allowed all of us that we could be something in life and we could be whatever we wanted to be. And so I think about that good trouble that John Lewis was mentioning, that I too wanted to embody and partake in. And so a few examples, I think, Dr. Ruban mentioned a few instances of my career, but, when we started studying prostate cancer, and we would think about this disease as a whole, and we would think about these statistics, no one in the world cared. We would write that this disease was more virulent in African-American men, and we would just ignore that and just go about our research. And I thought that was unacceptable. It just was not. It was unacceptable. There had to be more to that, had to be more, and we set out our career. I want to thank Dr. Timothy Turner for coming here, for giving me the opportunity, to start a lab. He believed in, he said, yes, Clayton, we don't have a lot at Tuskegee, but we believe in your dream, and we believe in you, right? And so starting that journey at Tuskegee, and now having so many people. We have trainees here in the lab. We have our graduate students. So we have, well, they're now other professors, but my former graduate students. We have all the people come in, my colleagues. that have traveled so far from Florida, again, from Georgia, from Alabama to be here is a testimony that I think we did something other than just science, that we had an impact on people, right? And so while doing good science, we had an impact on individual lives, people, and that collective embodiment of that single goal was something that can't or won't go away, and people remember and or respect. And so again, I'm very, very thankful for that. I'm not gonna stay up here too long. We have a dinner, and I think we can have a lot of discussion afterwards. But I just want to thank everyone. Mr. Keita Lee, oh my goodness, she took care of me as my program manager for many years. And that's not easy because I'm tough, right? And so, just really thankful for everyone that has contributed to me being able to stand here and accept this auspicious award and be the first and inaugural John R. Lewis Professor of Pathology. And lastly, I want to thank my Johns Hopkins colleagues, right? This makes 1 year that I've been here at Johns Hopkins. And I can say, as an African American, we sort of talked about, the disparity not in disease, but the disparity in representation. At Hopkins, I feel at home. And so I want to thank my colleagues that have welcomed me into the department, that welcomed me into the School of Medicine, that have embraced what we embody as a commitment to disparities, a commitment to diversity. And I couldn't think of any other place other than Tuskegee that I would want to be to continue in this next journey of my life. So again, thank you to John Lewis's family for being here. I know this, just taking the time out. Your father meant so much to us. I did visit, the museum. I went to Selma. I walked over the bridge. Growing up in Atlanta, we always knew who John Lewis was. And so, again, thank you for being here. And I just want to, again, echo my overwhelming gratitude for this professorship. And I promise you, you'll see more coming out of it in the future. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Thank you all for joining. I want to recognize Senator Mark Kelly, who's also joined us from Arizona for this ceremony. On behalf of the Department of Pathology and Johns Hopkins University, thank you all for being here this evening on this special occasion. It's truly wonderful and truly historic. This concludes our formal presentation. For those present, please now join us upstairs on the 10th floor for a reception to socialize. We'll be up there till 7, and I think we come back down for dinner. When you depart the room, our staff will direct you to the elevators and guide you. I'd like to ask those who spoke during the ceremony, and if you can join us also, and Mr. Kelly, for quick photographs at the end of this. Thank you for coming, and have a wonderful evening.